It's a scary thought.
Yes, it is.
But the Jews stirred up the devout and prominent women and the chief men of the city, raised up, persecuted against Paul and Barnabas, and expelled them from their region. But they did what Jesus commanded them to do. But they shook the dust off from their feet against them and came to Iconium. So in the Gospels, Christ says, if they're not going to take your word, dust your sandals off and move over to the next town.
That's right.
He also says, a prophet is even loved in his own hometown. It's hard to find love from a place where you once were unsaved, I guess is the best way to describe it. It's hard to find love when people know your past, but they don't know the power of Christ, and they don't know that you can change anybody and anything in any situation. Because for someone who doesn't believe that, they're going to look at you like you're either a fraud or you're just off your rocker. And I don't care, but you call me both. I'm a Jesus freak.
Mhm.
That's just what I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we'll move over to 14. We'll start in verse 2. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned their minds against the brethren. And this is why bad religion is so dangerous. Because if this bottle is full of water, right? And I take one drop of red food coloring and I drop it here, it's going to change the color of the whole thing. It doesn't take much. So let's pretend that red food coloring is poison. And I put one drop of poison
You don't
in
have to
here.
pretend that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, that's true. Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's actually really got there. Let's put like poison that will kill you, like some sort of poison that will kill you. And one drop of it only takes one drop. I don't have to empty this out and put half of it in here and then fill the other half up with poison. It only takes a little bit of poison. It only takes a little bit of bad doctrine. It only takes a little bit of bad religion. It only takes a little bit of bad faith. It only takes a little bit to lead you astray. And that's why it's so important to get in this. And this is why I'm so big on getting on here and reading it yourself and learning it yourself. I'm never going to be one of those pastors that tells you that whatever I say is right. No. You get in here and you read it yourself and you learn it yourself. Test me. You're called to test the spirit of your pastor. You're called to test the spirit of people.
Yeah, through their fruits.
Test me. Get in here and read it for yourself. Please. It only takes a little bit of sin. It only takes a little bit of sin, and then it slowly grows. And before you know it, you have a tumor. And then if you don't remove the tumor, before you know it, it spreads.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, your whole body's poisoned. And sin in its fullness leads to death.
Yes.
It's just the truth. Therefore they stayed there a long time, speaking boldly in the Lord, who was bearing witness to the word of his grace, granting signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the multitude of the city was divided, part sided with the Jews and part sided with the apostles. And it's like, dude, these men are walking around like performing miracles, healing the sick, making the blind see, casting out demons, and you're still gonna side with the religious? It's just humanity. Like Jesus could be right in front of some people, and literally they would still deny the fact that he's Jesus.
Yeah.
It's just the God of this world has blinded their eyes, and it's just the way it is. And when a violent attempt was made by both the Gentiles and the Jews with their rulers to abuse and stone them, they became aware of it and fled to Lystra and Derbe. There's a lot of cities in here, guys, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this wrong, so please forgive me if I'm pronouncing these wrong. Cities of Lycaonia in the surrounding regions, and they were preaching the gospel there. And in Lystra, a certain man without strength in his feet was sitting, a crippled from his mother's womb, who had never walked. This man physically was incapable to walk since birth. Medically at the time, and possibly maybe even medically now, I don't know, but medically at the time there was no curing him. You could not fix him. He was crippled, and there was no human fixing. There was no doctor at the time that could fix this. And this man heard Paul speaking. Paul, observing him intently and seeing that he had faith to be healed, said with a loud voice, "Stand up straight on your feet." and he leaped up and walked. He went from never being able to walk to jumping up because of the power of Christ. Because Paul was a man of God, and the Holy Spirit dwelt within Paul. And he said move, and the man had faith that it would move, and that sickness moved immediately. And he went from being crippled to jumping.